What's up, everyone? Welcome to the March 22nd edition of DraftKings Tournament Plays presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get one free month of Awesemo plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at Prize Picks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. Today, we're going to take a look at 5 of the top tournament options on DraftKings for tonight's 4-game NBA slate using the Boom Bust tool on the Awesemo.com website. As always, be sure to tune in to the deeper dive and live before lock in the 2 hours leading up until tip for more up-to-date ownership projections, player projections, and injury news. But for now, taking a look at 5 of the top options as things currently stand. Starting at number 5, Ivica Zubac, $6,100 center, projected for about 6% ownership, with a 10% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Zubac has averaged 1.04 DraftKings points per minute this season. There's a lot of volatility here because he does have a difficult matchup against Nikola Jokic. Obviously, there's plenty of foul risk here. But if he's able to avoid fouls, I do expect Zubac to play the vast majority of the center minutes tonight. In 3 games against Jokic this season, we have 1 game where Zubac was in massive foul trouble, only played about 10 minutes. But in the other 2 games, he played 27 and 32 minutes in regulation. I expect the Clippers to want him on the floor for as many minutes as he can be out there, and he is a good point per minute fantasy producer. Number 4, Klay Thompson, $8,100 shooting guard, projected for about 10% ownership with a 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Thompson's the perfect example of a play that you can pay up, overpay a little bit to be contrarian in tournaments. It's pretty difficult to find an option at relatively low ownership on a slate of this size that has the same massive ceiling that Thompson does. Without Curry on the floor this season, Thompson has a 27.1% usage rate. He's averaged 1.17 DraftKings points per minute, and he played 38 minutes in his last game. So there's no playing time concerns here. We should expect Thompson to play a ton of minutes tonight in a good matchup against the Orlando Magic. Number 3, Nemanja Bjelica, $3,900 power forward and center option, projected for 7% ownership with an 18% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Bjelica is interesting in tournaments just because he is a good point per minute producer. He's averaged 0.99 DraftKings points per minute this season. You're going to get a lot of games where he only plays, 16, 17 minutes, and he's not really likely to get it done if he does play 16 or 17 minutes. But if anything happens to Kevon Looney and or Draymond Green ahead of him in the rotation, you can certainly get more minutes from Bjelica. And considering how good of a fantasy producer he is on a per minute basis, it's not going to take that much extra playing time for him to work out as a low-owned, relatively high upside option at a cheap price tag. Number 2, Evan Fournier, $5,400 with shooting guard and small forward eligibility. Fournier is projected for about 14% ownership with a 20% chance of being in the optimal lineup. If you take Julius Randle off the floor this season, Fournier's rates don't really change. His per minute production doesn't really change. He's averaged 0.82 DraftKings points per minute with Randle on the floor, 0.81 DraftKings points per minute without him. But Randle's absence does, I think, increase the likelihood of a ceiling game from Fournier. Even if his average production isn't going to change that much, you do still have a very high usage option in Randle that's not playing. And it's just one less guy that Fournier has to compete with in order to be, that guy in tonight's game. So even though I don't think there's a big change in average production, I do think that there's a little bit greater chance that Fournier has a big game. And he's not really getting that much ownership at his current price tag. Like I said, 14% ownership, 20% chance of being in the optimal lineup. And then sticking with the New York Knicks, the number 1 tournament option on tonight's slate, Mitchell Robinson, only $5,400. He is center only, projected for 12% ownership with a 21% chance of being in the optimal lineup. As is the case with Fournier, Robinson's per minute production with or without Randle on the floor hasn't really changed this season, but he is inexpensive and he does have very volatile playing time, which can be appealing in tournaments. You're talking about someone that, on average is probably going to give you around 26 minutes or so because he does foul at a high rate. Sometimes you get different rotations from the Knicks where he doesn't play huge minutes, but you also have in his range of outcomes the 34, 35, 36-minute games, and he's about a fantasy point per minute player. So it's not hard to see how he could post a massive game at only $5,400. So to recap, the top 5 tournament options on DraftKings: number 5, Ivica Zubac; number 4, Klay Thompson; number 3, Nemanja Bjelica; number 2, Evan Fournier; and number 1, Mitchell Robinson.